Jiggy and I watched The Faculty from 1998.
I think something's taking over our school. Everybody's been acting really strange, especially the faculty.
Yeah, there was a pretty well-known movie back in 1956 called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And it was also, it's based on a novel, and it was also adapted again in 1977. So just picture that in high school in 1998. Pretty much follows a group of students as they discover some type of alien invasion plot taking place among their teachers, who begin to act strangely and infect students, and pretty soon they find the six of them are the only, well, arguably real people left in this small town in Ohio, which, as someone who lives in Indiana, which is one state next to Ohio, it's not a good place to be, so I feel for them. And yeah, it's primarily an Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is also brought up in the movie itself, plot in which they have to try to find a way to survive and defeat this alien menace. So it's just a modern adaptation of that sort of classic story.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if this is very surprising to you or not, but I don't think I've watched either the original or remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, so it's something I've been meaning to do, but I just never have done it.
Yeah, I grew up watching the 1956 version. I've seen that movie probably 4 or 5 times, and I think it's a fantastic movie. I only saw the 1977 movie like maybe 2 years ago, and I thought it was okay. And a lot of people, much like the Blob remake, a lot of people think the 77 Invasion of the Body Snatchers is like a much better movie than the 50s movie, and naturally I think they're wrong, but that's just because I guess my mind is just programmed to enjoy 360 things more than post-60s, so it's okay with me. Some of the musically, it's mentioned in the movie, I think it's when, what's the guy's name? Elijah Ward's character is talking to Clea DuVall, who plays sort of like this science fiction reading goth type girl. Goth isn't really the right word, it's more like alternative. But she's into science fiction, and she's talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and she references to the novel. And some of the music she references that she believes it's ripped off from a novel called The Puppet Masters, which I think was published 4 years before. And you may have seen this, you may not have. There was a 1994 movie called The Puppet Masters, which I haven't seen myself, but now I'm sort of curious to give it a watch to see how it compares to this whole like alien invasion type thing. But long story short, this is sort of like a modern take on the classic fears of alien invasion, which is sort of nice. I mean, it's very much a product of its time. I mean, the actors alone sort of give credence to that, but the soundtrack and a lot of things just feel late 90s. Which, as a kid who was born in like 93, I sort of enjoy the aesthetics. It feels, I don't know, somewhat nostalgic to me. But I also imagine, like, if you're a guy who was born like 20 or 30 years before, it may not do as much to relate to you.
No, it does, because, this is a time when I was in my teen years, and this is a movie I've seen quite a lot, quite a lot of times back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's like one of the first DVDs I can remember buying. So I've certainly seen the movie quite a lot, and like I said, it is very reminiscent of the times. Like it's from the late 90s, and it feels and looks very late 90s. You want a movie that looks like 1998? Put this movie on. And they got those nice big box monitors with probably running Windows 98 or Windows 95. I don't know what the hell they're using there, but you see in the principal's office, they got this big ass computer that takes up half the room. Anyways, like I said, I've seen this movie quite a lot of times, but it's been a while since I last watched it. When did you last watch this movie? Before watching it just now?
Yeah, so I've actually only seen this movie once before. And it's probably been at least like 10 years. Somewhere between like, I don't know, 15 or 16 years and 10, somewhere in this. So it's been a really long time. So much so that I actually forgot. I remember the story and I remember the handful of scenes, but I forgot how many recognizable faces are in this movie. So I was sort of a nice surprise watching this and seeing it. Think, oh, hey, I know the actor. Oh, hey, I know them. So that was nice.
It's like pretty much everyone in the cast is someone super recognizable.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, there's some names I recognize that I know are big names, but I don't personally know them. Like this is a small character, but there's a woman, a Salma Hayek. I know she's a big name. I have no idea who she is, but I see her name pop up, and there's always sort of small things like that when people recognize different people. Like I recognized Christopher McDonald from Happy Gilmore, and I even like the sort of reference that Robert Patrick does to the Shooter McGavin finger thing. That was funny. I caught that, but
Did you catch the other reference in the movie that they made? I'm guessing because Robert Patrick is in the movie.
What's that?
The name of Jon Stewart's character.
Yeah, so I know it's God. I just saw the name because it's the name of an actor, right? Furlong.
Edward Furlong, who is the actor from Terminator 2, which was Robert Patrick's first big role, where he spends the whole movie chasing Edward Furlong.
So I knew the name. I knew the name out of Furlong. It sort of connected something, but I didn't know it came from Terminator. So that makes complete sense. So yeah, I mean, obviously, a movie like this, I think it's sort of like it's not like a comedy or anything, but it can be quite fun. Sometimes it might be a bit overproduced, but it can still be fun. Actually, it's so funny. The tone reminds me of a bit of a Deep Rising, which is amusing to me because one that came out the same year, two that was also very much 90s. Like you could very much tell Deep Rising was a 90s movie, and three, it had however you say her name is. So it's a
Famke Janssen. Famke Janssen.
Yeah, I was going to let you do it just because I have no idea, and I'm not going to try to sound intelligent.
Well, I think most people say Famke Janssen, but I'm pretty sure I've seen her say her actual name before, and I'm pretty sure it was Famke Janssen. But yeah, she was really hot in Deep Rising. But you know, watching this movie and being the young teenage boy that I was, that scene later in the movie where she comes back all hot and shit.
Hello, Miss Burke.
Hello, sweetie pie.
Josh Hartnett is like trying to hook her up with some drugs, and she says something like, "Oh, I'm interested in the other thing," which were the magnums, and you know, young teenage boy is like, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah.
Anyways, yeah, like lots of recognizable faces in this movie. Even you know, you got Piper Laurie in there, who was in the original Carrie. She was Carrie's mum, the mother. And hey, they've even got that rapist Danny Masterson in here. So isn't he serving a life sentence in jail?
That's a question that requires research. I'm not even sure which actor that was. Give me a sec.
He was one of the two dudes who kept going up to Josh Hartnett's character trying to buy drugs. The curly-headed dude from that 70s show.
I've actually never seen the 70s show, which is probably why name means nothing to me. He is a convicted rapist. That's quality. Yeah. Sentenced to 30 years in prison back in 2023. It's always nice to see. I'm sure. Well, I have no idea when those accusations happened or when that case went down. But I have to imagine since this movie came in '98, he might have been an innocent kid back then. But who knows?
I think it was only a few years ago that he actually got convicted of it. So, anyways, yeah, lots of people in this movie.
Yeah, one I want to mention, and this is, I think I've mentioned this actress before, but Clea DuVall, who plays one of the main 6 kids. She's an actress who's been in a decent amount of things. She's like, I don't know what she's most well known for. The things I happen to know her most for are more obscure. She was in the year 2001, How to Make a Monster, which I personally have enjoyed ever since I was a kid. And she was also in a sort of a comedy drama movie called 10-Inch Hair, which I thought she did a great job in. So it's really nice seeing her in this role too. I'm not wild about the where her character ends up, but I think she's nice to see him.
Yeah, well, my wife says she'd go gay for her, so which is funny because in the movie, okay, they're making fun of her like potentially being a lesbian or something, and in the movie she's not, because she's, you know, got the hots for that jock douche Stan.
Tell me something, Miss Lesbian. When did you start liking boys?
The fuck are you talking about?
I see the way you look at Stan. So when did you stop muff diving?
But I'm pretty sure in real life she is married to a woman.
Okay, so I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you mentioned it, I feel like I sort of have to. So I had no idea DuVall was a lesbian. She is apparently a lesbian. Like you said, she's married to someone, and she's been married to them for a handful of years now. I had no idea that she was gay until today, which is sort of funny because I've always been somewhat attracted to the actress. And it reminds me of the fact that I was also attracted to Paige back before Paige came out as a lesbian and then came out as transgender. So
that's still like one of the greatest moments of our discussions where we're talking about what type of woman we like, and you're talking about how you're more of an Ellen Page type woman, and then I think it was like weeks after you said that she announced she's becoming what's the Elliot Page?
Yeah, Elliot Page. Yeah, my timing is impeccable. But yeah. I made, because once I read that, I made a comment like, "Oh, hey, I guess I do have a type. My type seems to be lesbians." So, that's great, but. Yeah, I really like the actress.
Well, as soon as you read that, though, you found out that Clea DuVall is lesbian. You're like crossing another one off the list. It's like no chance in hell.
Well, it's like the one meme, like it's a strange thing that happened twice, but hey, I have a nickel. I butchered that, but yeah, it's I just find it some of the amusing. And
well, who else is on your list? So we have to go investigate them to see if they're lesbians.
Well, I have to imagine, I'm sure plenty of them. The funny thing is, I don't have a particularly large list of actresses I think of when I think of attractive actresses. It just happens that 2 of them would not be on my team, so it's amusing. But I did what you mentioned, one other thing as far as, not necessarily performances, but characters. You mentioned that DuVall's character was attracted to, I think you called him the jock douchebag, and maybe misquoting. I actually thought, he's played by a guy named Sean Hatsi. I'll be honest, I've never heard a guy that name before in my life. He might be one of the least known performances in this movie, to be honest. Which is nothing against him. I just think it's interesting that I pretty much know everyone else and I have no idea who this guy is. But what's interesting about the guy's character, he plays I forget if he was quarterback, I think he was. But he plays like a big high school quarterback, and he decides to leave the team and focus on academics. And I actually thought his character was one of the most interesting. He might have been potentially underdeveloped, but I thought he was one of the most interesting characters in the movie. Mainly because I sort of hated jocks back in my high school days. And seeing a guy sort of who is a jock rebel against being a jock, I think it's sort of fun. And I actually thought he tells a story about how he got a D on a science test, and the teacher gave him an A just because he's a good quarterback. And it's like, oh hey, I worked hard on that D. I know that
He
jokes.
wants the D.
I know.
I worked hard for that D. That was my D. I deserved that D.
I know that that conversation sort of would veer that way, but I thought it's quite a touching, might be a bit strong, but I thought it's a really good story about why he wants to sort of quote unquote go straight and try to actually get by on his education. I really liked that, and he might be a more forgettable performance, but I actually think his character was one of the most interesting. So kudos there.
Yeah. So I guess you really relate to Elijah Wood's character then.
And see, this thing about Elijah Wood, I don't have an issue. I guess to me, his character comes across as somewhat stereotypical. Just like a somewhat geeky guy who likes... it just strikes me as... I've seen that type of character before. And I'm not saying that he did a bad job. I thought he did perfectly fine. I've no problem with his performance. But yeah, it just didn't interest me quite as much as some of the other characters in the movie.
I think the very first thing we see of him in the movie is him getting his balls crushed on a flagpole.
No, not the ball!
Have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh, see, the funny thing is, and this may have been brought up, this may not have been, I was never really bullied in school. I seemed like the type who probably would have been, but I guess either people were just generally nice in my school or I just flew under the radar. So I was never bullied or anything. But I was more of the academically inclined. Like I with through high school got like A's and B's from pretty much all of my classes. So yeah, I was one of those types of people. I was never on the school paper, but I can relate slightly to what Elijah Wood is going through.
Well, earlier you mentioned how this movie is, I don't know if it's influenced or ripping off Invasion of the Body Snatchers and all that kind of stuff. But kind of halfway through the movie, there is that scene where they're all kind of taking or sniffing that homemade drug to see who is still human, which is very reminiscent of The Thing. Do you think that was like a homage to The Thing, or that's just a big coincidence? Or
so here's the funny thing. I was reading through trivia after I watched the movie, just so naturally I did what to read it before, and I did what to spoil anything. And I saw that come up, and I guess one thing, I've only seen The Thing once. Like, I saw The Thing once, like, 15 years ago. Ironically, I don't remember a thing about it. So I imagine, given the popularity of The Thing, I imagine it's very much an intentional homage. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, to be honest, but I guess I just don't remember the details of the sequence from The Thing to really compare the two.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same. Like, you got the group of people, they're testing each other's blood, seeing if it reacts to heat or whatever it was. And, eventually someone just cracks, so...
Yeah, and I will say this. I generally had fun with this movie, but I have to say that sequence annoyed me just a little bit. So, like Chucky said, these people are sort of snorting this homemade drug because some type of chemical process in the drug apparently kills whatever alien host or parasite this thing is. So
let him fucking tweak!
So they decide to here's the problem. They don't all decide before taking the drug. It's like one of them forces someone to take it. They should have talked beforehand, like, hey, we are committing to doing this before taking this because it's a mind-altering drug. And they should have come to an agreement beforehand to avoid any of the, oh, I can't take that. Oh, hey, I'm not doing that. It's so 80s. Like, they should have all agreed beforehand. And again, I'm looking at this through like an organized perspective, and these kids are just trying to do what they have to do. But they should have just sat down and say, hey, we all have to take this. Do we all agree? Yes. And then move on. But the way they went about it was not about... I mean, they probably all should have done it at the same time, to be honest. But I understand also the need to watch them while they do it. So it's sort of a difficult situation.
Yeah. Plus, it's a bit of a intense time. I don't think anyone's thinking too logically, or I don't know. It's just
to be fair, they were high school kids. So I mean, yeah, I may be a logical dick nowadays, but I probably wasn't back in high school. So
yeah. Well, I think this was Josh Hartnett's second movie after Halloween H2O. I think I don't know if there was another one in there, but his hairdo is he's fixed it a little bit since Halloween H2O, but it still needs a bit of attention. But I guess it's a good thing that it wasn't as bad as H2O. So, but once again, that's the whole young high school type bullshit. So,
yeah, and I was going to say, because I also said that in the trailer, like there's a whole issue with his haircut. I had no problem with his haircut in this movie, to be honest. It didn't even ratchet, so it's like a issue to me.
it's like a light version of the shitty haircut that he had in H2O.
Well, yeah, and that's going to lead me to my point where I actually forgot he was in, because I haven't seen 20 Years Later in so long. I forgot he was in that movie. So I'll be interested once I finally watch the one again to, I guess, to see his performance there, because, like I said, I completely forgot he was there, so that should be fun.
Yeah. In this movie, there's a scene between Robert Patrick and Elijah Wood where they're talking, and Elijah Wood's trying to, I guess, exit the conversation. And the coach is saying something about how he should join the team, and Elijah Wood's saying something like, I don't think people should run unless they're being chased. That's probably the dumbest stance I've ever heard in regards to sports. So that's like a very, very much tell me you're unathletic or you sit at home in your mom's basement without telling me you sit at home in your mom's basement, that type of thing. Running's good for you.
I mean, you can do all the exercise, but yeah, I mean, I'm someone, I never once went to like a high school football game. So I feel like at the beginning of the movie, before a lot of this invasion stuff goes down, there's a conversation when, like, I think the principal is pretty much telling, oh, hey, we can't have a play this year. Hey, there's no money for computers. But yeah, we'll give the coach everything he wants because, yeah, football is so great. That's the thing that really bothers me about education. Like, oh yeah, we pay all the money to do football and just fuck the rest of the students. Like, they don't matter.
I know. I mean, if it was basketball, I'd understand, but
well,
I mean, football, come on.
I'm not surprised, but yeah, that's something that, I mean, obviously that's obviously a real world issue, but I sort of find it amusing how they tie it in here. And it makes sense, like in a small, like I know that in my, I should say hometown, but the place I grew up and went to like middle school and high school, I mean, yeah, football and basketball, I think both were really big things. And like the games that pull a lot of the town in. Now, I never went to like a single game of either one. Like, I used to fuck about this type of stuff. I was like basically doing other things. But it's sort of disappointing that it's like almost funneling money through this course just to supporting teams, like the other 5%. Oh yeah, I guess we can get like a new computer every 15 years. It's just disappointing to me, especially the whole outs, like plays and drama and all that stuff. I mean, there might be a lot more people interested in the outs if we actually had money to fund a lot of the outs, but they're just not as interesting, I guess, to a majority of people. It's just a shame to me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that were very interesting, when it was revealed kind of who the actual, I don't know what you want to call it, like the queen of the whole thing ends up being that Mary Beth character.
Yeah, I think Alien Queen would be the term that they used.
Alien Queen. The Alien Queen has some nice titties. They're pretty good.
Yeah, it didn't really leave much of an impact on me, but
Well, I mean, I can leave the southern voice, like she's giving me a bit of a Hawk Tour vibe, but which no one wants to have anything to do with that Hawk Tour shit anymore. But
see, I know that's a New Age reference, and I've seen that name before. No idea what it means, so it's okay.
Okay, well, I could go into the whole thing about that, but
That's okay.
We can leave that. But being a late 90s movie and being a creature movie, this movie does have quite a bit of CGI. And as you can expect, there are certain moments in the movie where the CGI doesn't look all that good. But I think for the most part, I guess they make it work without being too distracting. But yeah, there are some scenes where you kind of look at it and you're like,
Yeah,
kind of wish they didn't show as much, but
yeah, I think for me, the movie is at its best for like the first hour and maybe 20 minutes or so. Like once they get to the school and once the alien queen's identity is revealed, and like I just start losing interest. And I guess it makes sense. Like the mystery to me is usually more interesting than the final solution, the final answer to the mystery. Like once it turns from like an alien invasion movie to like a monster movie. I'm not a big monster movie guy. I'm not a big Godzilla guy. I just don't care that much about that type of thing. So when these characters being chased down by this like giant alien queen, the CGI, yeah, did it look great? It definitely looked dated. I think earlier they did okay. Like the parasite that Elijah Ward found, he threw it in the water, and I think those effects looked pretty good. But then like the whole alien queen, did it look great? But yeah, the whole final like 10-ish, 15-ish minutes wasn't as interesting to me, and that's not really necessarily a big knock against the movie. It's just going from alien invasion to being chased by a giant monster. That's not my thing.
yeah. Well, now the scariest, most harrowing part of the movie, at least for me, was when Shooter McGavin's taking away all of Elijah Wood's privileges. So he's, no phone, no internet, no music, no porno.
Sorry, pal. No more flogging the bishop.
Now, back in the late 90s, I didn't have internet. I didn't have a phone. So really, it's more the music and the other paraphernalia that would have hit me the hardest, but hardest. But yeah, that was the scariest part of the movie, I think.
I was probably never punished in my youth, so I wouldn't know.
Okay, so you're relating less and less to this guy as we go on with this discussion.
Well, I mean, I've also never had because I grew up in I don't know what genre is, what to say, but I've never had the need for like physical, like magazine pornography, like the whole American Pie hiding a porno magazine in your dresser drawer. Like I've never even seen one, like an actual porno magazine in my life. So
yeah, I think I got one in the drawer right next to me, but only because Shannon Tweed's on the cover. So
hey, at least you have a reason.
But look, back then the internet wasn't mainstream. I think most people didn't have the internet in the late 90s. Only some people were starting to get it at that time. And, you had to find other ways to satisfy those urges, and it either came through movies, magazines, and if you're old enough, still technically movies, but the forbidden zone of the video rental store. So that's I don't know if there's anything else, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, those would have been difficult times to live in.
And the thing is, well, I call it the forbidden zone in the video store, but let's call it the room that's kind of cut off from all the other movies, the one that has the curtain. So anytime you go to the video store, you're kind of looking at that section. Like, you're not going into it, but you're looking at it. And as soon as you see someone come out of that curtain, immediately you're in your mind, you're like, pervert. And even though I was like, I'd like to have a look. But anyways, those were the 90s. And speaking of 90s, this is the last thing I really have to say on this movie. Those fucking end credits, what the fuck were they thinking when they did that? I mean, that's so hokey how they did the end credits to this movie. It's so 90s, but it's so late 90s, but my God. That was
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't watch the whole end credits. I was mainly just listening to the music that they played.
Well, yeah, it's just, the music, the slow motion of showing all these characters. Some of it's outtakes, like the Jon Stewart one. Like, what the fuck? Anyways,
actually, and speaking, that's actually one last thing I want to say. So most of this music I probably recognize, but only two songs are songs I actually knew, like particularly well, being The Offspring with I think The Kids on the Ride, which is I don't listen to a lot of The Offspring, but that's among like the 8 songs I know by them. And then there was It's Over Now by I'm going to assume the name's pronounced Neve, and this was like a one-hit wonder. The funny thing is, I actually thought that song, It's Over Now, was in American Pie 2. That's where I thought I knew it. But then I looked at the American Pie 2 soundtrack and see it, and then like, oh hey, maybe I just know it from this movie. So, it's a nice surprise.
Yeah. Well, my wife's a big David Bowie fan, and one of the songs in the end credits was like a cover of one of his songs, and she was not all that pleased by the cover, but whatever.
Oh, and actually related, I was looking through the soundtrack to this movie, and they have a song by the band Stabbing Westward, which is a band that...
I know one song from them from like 20 years ago, and I still listen to it even in my car to this day. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a name I recognize. I mean, it's a pretty recognizable name. It's sort of a catchy band name, but I've literally not thought of that band in like 15 years. So I was like, when I was looking through the names, like, oh hey, I know that band, and yeah, it's sort of funny. And I imagine I've no idea. I looked in, apparently a lot of the music's like more industrial, which isn't really my jam. But I just I appreciate that. Hey, I recognize that name from like way back in the day, so it's nice.
I'm pretty sure they're still touring, because I think I saw them on a poster for some festival recently.
Yeah, I was reading up into the history. Apparently they disbanded in the early 2000s and got back together like, I don't know, 2018 or something. So
yeah,
it's always nice when bands can do that. Even band, I have to imagine it's not actually have a like humongous. I can't imagine they have a humongous fan base, but I mean, what do I know? I guess I haven't thought of them in like 15 years. So.
Yeah. To be honest, I never hear anyone talk about them. So. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm sure they've got their dedicated fan base. Anyways, for the Faculty, in terms of just overall, do I think it's a good movie? All that kind of crap. It's decent. Like it's very much a product of its time. It has its moments. It can be a bit, well, it can be a bit fun. It's alright. Nothing amazing, but you can put it on, you can kind of have a decent enough time with it. And, yeah, that's pretty much what I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I generally enjoyed it. Aside from the finale, which I found not underwhelming, but just not quite as interesting as the previous material. I think it was decently fun, very much a late 90s movie. But as someone who has some experience with the late 90s, I dug it. It's certainly not going to be a movie for everyone, and like Chucky said, I don't think it's anywhere close to like a great movie. But I think it's reasonably fun, and it's a movie I wouldn't mind seeing again in the future.